This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 18th of April 2021, and I am 2J.
I'm Tuam.
And I am GK. In case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, short and sweet, oxygen scandal. In the Standard, teachers, civil servants hit a new pay freeze. And in the Star, Kalonzo on edge over Musalia Moi presidential ticket. What are we discussing today?
Now, what crosses your mind when a sniper rifle, an Uzi submachine gun, pistols, and over 4,000 rounds of ammunition are found with one person in a house in Karen? A sniper rifle that can hit a target accurately of 500 meters, a submachine gun that can fire 600 rounds a minute, 4 pistols, 4,000 rounds. For what purpose? Or maybe, who could be the target of such weaponry?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, on Mashujaa Day in 2019, police in Mombasa stumbled on a sniper bullet 500 meters away from the presidential dais at Mamangina waterfront. Cops don't know who the bullet belonged to, but the fact that it was found 500 meters directly opposite the presidential dais is chilling. Now, we're not saying there's a relationship between the equipment found in Karen and the sniper's bullet in Mombasa. However, we are alive to the fact that succession elections attract two things. One, constitutional crisis, and two, assassinations. But even as we say this, allow me to ask, what happened to the Muzungu fellow who attacked DP's house in Karen with a drone? We are told he was a Muzungu who was a tourist from Kwale who happened to be a neighbor who was showing off a new house to his relatives that had come from Mars. And according to The Nation, the drone was only spotted by RUTO.
Very strange.
Never mind that the DP is the second most protected person in Kenya. One wonders whether on the material day his G company bodyguards were wearing blinders. I'll shoot straight. My hunch is there was never a drone attack at DP's official residence or DP's official house. And that story that it's only Rachel Ruto that saw the drone is absolute bollocks. Whoever created that story, if it was created, was deflecting attention from something. And in my view, it's something a lot more sinister. What is it to you, you may ask? Or what is it that could happen, you may ask? Let's wait and see who's the owner of the sniper rifles and machine guns. Maybe there's a bigger cache somewhere. And also maybe someone has been watching Suluhu at Meza Mate. Lastly, as I end, what happened to the 39 billion fake gun scandal? The one that was allegedly planned from the deputy president's office by a former cabinet minister. Is it possible that some of the guns imported are the same ones found in Karen today? Time will tell.
Yeah, I don't often agree with your conspiracy theories, but I think today, you hit the nail on the head. There's just too much happening in Karen for it to add up.
Yes.
And I think, as you've said, succession elections bring one of many things, one of those being assassination. So it's quite convenient, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Before you go, 2J, I want to read out our 3-part criteria.
Oh, yes. Remind us, ground us.
Is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? Is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? But I see that 2M has gone in another direction.
Yes. So 2M, what do you think of the Daily Nation?
Nonsense.
Okay, fine. I guess we can toss the Daily Nation. But today, I want to speak to the spider's web of political talks, agreements, and negotiations that are currently going on in the country. And in reference to the Star, I want to tell Kalonzo not to worry. This is all part of the game. The 2022 succession election will be defined by bargaining and backstabbing. So having conversations with your competitors is the strategy.
Yes.
And in our view, this actually confirms that each potential candidate has realized that they can't go it alone. The 2022 election, in my opinion, will be one of the most competitive elections in Kenya's history. It will be competitive because it is all about the numbers. As it stands, not a single candidate can gather enough votes to make it past the 50% plus one stage. Fact. And because of this, we foresee that it will force all the candidates to work together. But what we don't know is whether this will be in the form of pre-election coalition building or post-election coalition building. But here at the Fort Hall School of Government, we think that game theory can help explain the strategic choices that are going to be made and the outcomes that we may see. In our view, 2022 is going to be a Nash equilibrium election. Now allow me to explain that. A Nash equilibrium, like the name suggests, is all about an equilibrium, a state of balance and stability for all parties involved. But specifically, a Nash equilibrium is a situation where everyone's best interests are aligned, so nobody wants to change their position or their decision. At this point, all players in the game, in this case an election, consider their own options, but also consider their opponent's options. And so we find equilibrium if everybody chooses to collaborate, because it's actually the best choice to make.
Yeah.
And so in the case of 2022 then, where is the equilibrium? We have already said that the numbers aren't on everyone's side. So the only option is to build consensus through coalitions.
Yes.
I say, let the negotiations continue. So Kalonzo, I tell you, if Musalia and Moi are in talks,
Yes.
maybe then you should give Matiang'i a call. Can't hurt.
Is that a plug? Yeah, everyone should talk. And today I want to submit 3 very random things. 1, as the wahala about successor rages on, one thing is very apparent is Uhuru Kenyatta's silence.
Yes.
This has been a source of frustration for those who seek direction, blessing to move forward with their ambition, and majority of Gema are undoubtedly frustrated with the silence. They only have a man with a coconut head at the moment. And silence annoys not only us, but even the devil. So if country and other political actors are acting funny, going for tea, taking photo ops, it is because Uhuru's silence is so loud. And here at the Fifth Estate, we submit that Uhuru should not break this silence. Uhuru knows that the Kikuyus have been grumpy ever since Handshake happened, and while they sulked, division was sowed amongst them. Now they risk squandering their 5.6 or 5.7 million king-making power voting block. However, Uhuru should continue to organize house as they sulk, because I suspect that is what he is doing.
Absolutely.
My second random thought is what is happening with BBI? I ask because we must demand follow-through from the handshake process. If the First Amendment to the 2010 Constitution is not made before the next election, nothing will have been resolved. Handshake will have been bure. And this is because peace is not the absence of war, it is the conquest of war. What we got with the handshake is just a ceasefire, a cessation of the hostilities.
Correct.
Hostilities that can be activated at a later date, and that date is fast approaching with the next election. My third random thought is that I want to dedicate the book, The Black Swan, The Impact of the Highly Improbable by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, to everybody. And
the whole country.
The whole country. Start reading. And this is because I suspect 2022 will not only be a successor, but also an outlier election, which means anybody, and I mean anybody, can be president. And there are some politicians who have expired. They have degenerated over time due to age and competition, and we ought to cast them aside kabisa.
Yes.
I call it an outlier election because it will lay outside the realm of regular expectations. Nothing in the past can convincingly point to its possibility, and it will also carry an extreme impact.
Yes.
So
Fantastic.
stay tuned.
Fantastic.
Very
So
true.
with that, do we have a winning headline? I didn't see any of them that were compelling.
Not at
Especially
all.
the star looks like it was written by Tumbi.
So we will toss it.
Yeah.
And onto our cartoons, which we're bringing back. We have a 3-part criteria. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy? What do we have?
In the cartoons, what we have Daily Nation, caricature of Super CS, Fred Matiang'i. And he has locked some counties up, and he has taken away the key, and it seems like a Kenyan has been pressed down.
Yeah.
And I think it's with regard to him extending curfew to May 29th.
Yeah.
Excellent decision. If people are falling down like flies because of COVID,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have to
and,
take that
yeah,
precaution.
Kenyans have no idea. And the president said something the other day. He said, we can revive the economy, but we can never revive lives.
Yeah.
And if we continue like this, by the end of the year, who knows? We probably have 1 million people dead if we did not lock up country.
And as unfortunate as it is, we have to be honest and recognize that this in part does come from the Ramadan celebrations, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Just how it is with all churches or any religious community. You want to be together during a special period in your religion, or your those traditions.
Yes.
But that also comes with the risk of, creating more cases. So
Absolutely.
we have to do what we have to do.
We're telling you, good job, lock us up.
However, I will say this does not mean that the restaurants won't open up, bars won't open up. It just means that curfew is set where it is for the next 60 days. So relax.
Absolutely. Second one, the Standard, Gado, and there is a lost and found section. I think somewhere in downtown Dar es Salaam, and Dodoma, and there is a picture of Suluhu.
Yeah.
The lost and found section is
She's in charge.
She's in charge, but the lost and found section is full of brains, and the Tanzanians are queuing up to look for their brains, and the first one in line is CCM. And the guy in charge there of Lost and Found said the challenge is to identify which brain belongs to who.
Is it too soon? Gajo, too soon?
No, not at all.
I think this is a plus for Suluhu, and I think this woman is very, very sly. She has overturned everything Magufuli has ever done, and Tanzania seems to be on a new
heading on the right track,
on a new path.
I like it.
Yeah, and we can't forget Gado is originally
from Tanzania.
Yeah, he's in exile in Kenya.
I think he wants his way back to Tanzania.
So. I like it. Let's park it.
Yeah,
as
next
a
one.
contender.
The Star. It's Ozone caricature of Vladimir Putin, Farmajo, and President Uhuru Kenyatta. And Farmajo and Putin are reading from the same book called Extending Term Limits. And Uhuru has come to see what they could be reading, and he is with a book written BBI. And the caption there is, they say, I want to borrow that idea too. And he's the one who's speaking.
So, of course, Putin, I think, has extended until 2026.
Yeah, and
Farmajo as well for the next 2 years.
Yeah. But it's, you assess the situation, you say, can we afford it? Is it the right time to do it?
Yeah.
Context is everything, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think on that note, we should toss the Star.
Absolutely.
Okay, rubbish cartoon.
I quite like the Standard. I feel like that is humorous. It was very funny.
Humorous.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
There you have it. Standard gives us our winning cartoon.
And now, final four. It is inspired by the battle between KFC and Chick-fil-A.
Yes. So this week, of course, we've been looking at some business wars that happen around the world. And today we take it to food.
Yes.
So Kentucky Fried Chicken, also known today as KFC, was incorporated in 1955 by Colonel Harland Sanders in Corbin, Kentucky. KFC has grown from a back room in a fuel station in the middle of nowhere to become the most well-known chicken fast food restaurant chain in the world. Today, it enjoys a massive global presence, and its food is enjoyed by millions of people every single day. Right now, it has 22,600 restaurants in 135 countries around the world, with sales of 27.9 billion as of July last year. But while KFC was enjoying world dominance, a small company crept up to beat it at its own game and do it better. This company is known as Chick-fil-A. So it was founded in 1946 by a man called Truett Cathy, and it started as a family-owned business. But in 54 years, it grew to become one of the biggest fast food chains in the world as well. And in the last 10 years, Chick-fil-A's market share in chicken-based restaurants went up from 18% to 33%. As for KFC, it dropped from almost 30% to 15%. Quite shocking.
Whoa.
And Chick-fil-A's success can be traced in part to the chain's peculiar business model. So the company accepts just 0.4% of franchises, and that's one of the most selective chains in the industry. So for example, out of more than 20,000 inquiries that they receive annually, the company only selects and approves between 75 to 80 new franchises every single year. So the operators don't own or receive any equity in the business, and they can only operate one single location. Very famously, they are closed every Sunday and maintain to keep strict Christian values as part of their company culture. But in part, because of these strict Christian values, they've also made an enemy of the public, as their religious views don't always align with that of the liberal American or maybe even global public. So how is it that a company that has been trapped with controversy and is closed on Sundays is the next in line to become the biggest fast food chain restaurant? I think it has something to do with the philosophy of the company that has made it so popular. They noticed consumer trends very early and ensured that they focused on that. Chick-fil-A is ranked with the best customer service year after year. I think they said their customers, their employees smile 90% of the time. I don't even know how you rank that. And they became successful at a time when KFC was dealing with the bad press about their genetically modified chicken. And people generally just wanted to eat healthier. So this is contrasted with Chick-fil-A's model that focused on fresh food and fresh ingredients. So despite losing a potential $1.5 billion by being closed every Sunday or any of their other issues, Chick-fil-A has made a pact to stay in its lane and keep doing what they do best. And surprisingly, this has forced KFC to rethink its own model. And for me, as we've looked at all the businesses this week, it's actually proof that competition is very good for consumers. We end up being the winners, with more options on the market.
Sure.
Could not agree more. Chick-fil-A potato sourcing methods are such that warus are sourced straight from the farm to the restaurant. There are no processors, cold room storage, no brokers in between, straight from the source to the restaurant. All their warus are sourced locally. Nothing is imported. Every input they use is local. And this method got me thinking that all these Western food outlets operating in Nairobi should be required by law to do the same. You know why? If you maintain the entire value chain in Kenya, we cease being net consumers at retail level and become wealthy producers. Let me give you an example. Ladies, before we started to do this, I had some KFC.
You were doing research?
Yes, I was doing research. Now, chicken is excellent, but their chips taste like rubber. It doesn't taste like anything grown in Kinangop or Nyandarua or Molo. And that's because KFC imports their potatoes from Egypt. They have almost 30 outlets in Nairobi.
Kenya?
In Kenya. But I mean, show me anywhere else. I haven't seen any in Murang'a. Now, if on average, each outlet grosses 10 million shillings per month and profits about 5 million shillings, then it means each outlet spends close to almost 3.5 to 4 million shillings on inputs alone, give or take. If all its inputs are sourced from Egypt, the Egyptian farmer is benefiting from you Kenyan consumers. There's no difference between you going to a KFC in Buruburu and taking Egypt Air to go and have lunch at a KFC in downtown Cairo. Hakuna tofauti. I mean, why should an Egyptian farmer enjoy my money when I can go to McFry's and support a Kenyan waru farmer from Molo or Kinangop? 4 million shillings, Bob, on average, spent by 30 outlets locally, is about $1.2 million a month. If this money was spent on local supply chains by KFC per month, we would have wealthier potato farmers in all of Nyandarua or all of Kenya. It is time government forced all these foreign food retailers setting up to source everything locally. We can't be making others richer when our potato value chains are suffering.
Very true.
True.
I think it's something that the government can easily implement, right?
Absolutely.
When I was reading this, I thought a lot about Kenchick versus McFry's and what an interesting business model that would be. However, I think they both had their very unique selling points. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Kenchick decided to focus on chick production, right? And maybe perhaps the chicken you eat at McFry's was raised in
Kenchick anyway.
But also McFry's unique selling point was that, the chicken tasted a little bit better, the establishment was a little bit cleaner. So I think everybody brought something to the table. So I looked at some lessons I think we can learn from both KFC founders and Chick-fil-A founders. So success can often come later in life. Colonel Harlan Sanders actually, was facing bankruptcy. He was in his 60s, he was broke, unemployed, his marriage was failing, he was living out of his car, but franchising was coming up as a new concept in America. And so he would get into his car and drive around and convince people that he had this great spicy chicken that he had been experimenting with, and he would show them how to make it. He would walk around with his pressure cooker and he would literally fry you the chicken and tell you this is the agreement. It was trust-based. But what was interesting, that it was a guy called Pete Harmon in Utah, so not in Kentucky, that turned his fortunes around. Now, Harmon did an interesting thing. He became the first person to see that Colonel Sanders could be a brand. So that's how Colonel Sanders, if you look at the side of the KFC bucket, has the white beard, white hair, white outfit with the, the drawstring sort of tie.
Yeah.
And Harmon saw this gimmick and said this could sell. People will trust that this chicken is from Southern America, is tasty, it's from this guy. And so he slapped his picture on the side of chicken buckets and advertising, and it sold. And it's a gimmick that, interestingly, KFC would try and move away from years later, 50 years later or something like that, but would go back to these same roots in 2015. So KFC bet about $185 million in a new rebrand and bringing back the idea of Colonel Sanders as the face of the brand. And it sort of helped KFC get a bump in sales. But there are other lessons. Brand positioning. So for a long time, like Tujay mentioned, KFC was struggling with where chicken was coming from. So whether it was GMO, was it healthy, were the chicken being fed too many antibiotics? So there was a whole series of issues, and so they decided, okay, we're going to try and solve this by showing customers traceability. So when you go into a KFC restaurant, ideally, I think in the West, you would know which chicken or where it came from, which farm it came from, in a bid to sort of inspire this confidence. But as I was looking through the Business Wars research on this topic, one of the things they say is that there's been this pivot to healthier foods. So you find McDonald's, Popeyes, all these guys, Wendy's, were introducing the vegetarian option, the salad option, the healthy option. But KFC for a long time didn't introduce that. In fact, they even went as far as advertising things like there are a few problems that a bucket of fried chicken can't solve. And they really got stuck in that. Yet everyone else was pivoting to the healthier food market. But the interesting thing, and I think I can relate to this, the reason why 2M was so interested in the chips is because they tasted fake. They didn't taste real. And I think somebody once said the new healthy is really about real food. Knowing where your food comes from, how it's prepared, and if it's done the proper way. So ethical sort of farming practices. So I read a lot into it, and there's a very cool podcast that I think everyone should go and find. It's called Business Wars. It has different types of business wars. But I also want to point out one thing. Chick-fil-A's Christian roots have also come to bite them in the butt. And this is because the owner, Dan Cathy, took a stand against same-sex marriage. And a lot of states in America ended up banning or saying, Chick-fil-A is not welcome here. But I think the key lesson here is, I think, stick to what you believe and what your philosophy is as a company. You will have people for you and you'll have people against you. And that's the same thing with life, generally. So I'll end with this. On a day where we had no winning headlines, but a winning cartoon from the Standard, I want to leave you with this. Often in business, taking two positions is the same as taking none. You only have time to carve out time for one thing at a time. So choose wisely. Excellent. Have a lovely evening. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also find us on TV. We're on GoTV, Thank You to Air, and StarTimes.